Howdy, folks. Howdy, folks. I'm Black Dragon, and welcome to another edition of Black Dragon Biker TV. And as always, I'd like to thank you all for tuning in from wherever it is in the world that you happen to be. Thanks for tuning in with us tonight. Hey, man, we got an incredible show for you tonight. We're talking about it. You guys have asked about it. We've been through it. I've talked about it with a lot of these guys so many times. So we looked at the Sergeant at Arms last week, so we're going to look at the president this week. It's called Tyrant, King, Dictator, or Brother. Which kind of president are you? What are the duties of the president? And we'll bring our board on. We got Mayhem from the from LAMA, which is the Latin American Motorcycle Association down there in Texas. We got Danny D. Lowe. We got Shaggy, 1%er. We got Pac up there in. Hey, what's the temperature up there, Pac, today?
It's so cold he can't speak.
20 degrees, man. 20 degrees.
Yeah, that happened to me once in Chicago. I screamed at a guy, and I was pissed off he didn't answer me. And I saw him about a week later. It had warmed up a little, and right as I was talking to him, my voice caught up to us, and then he realized. All right, we got Watt on twos out there, and are you in Texas now, man? We got Dirty from the Biker Lifestyle Podcast. We got Big Bone 1%er. We got Tank from the Biker Lifestyle Podcast. These are my guys that are all out there. Somebody said it's 2MF and cold up there. Wow. Good to have you guys all. We have the audience here, so we're going to really get into this. There's a lot to cover. I think there could be a lot to cover. So, you know, I wanted to get just a whole spectrum of folks. We've got 1%ers, 99%ers. We got motorcycle associations. We've got traditional MCs. We got a lot of stuff covered. What we don't have on here would be like a ministry, a Christian ministry MC or something like that. But we got a lot of things covered. And what I kind of want to know is what we've heard a lot of is, you know, what is really the duties, responsibilities, privileges? How far can a president go? Some of these things we'll talk about tonight. What does a president get the right to do? Is a president a Hitler, a strongman, a dictator? Does it depend on your motorcycle club? Does it depend on your bylaws, or is it just that some people are weak and can't withstand a positive, strong, or aggressive president? There's a lot to ask, a lot to kind of unpack here. But in the duties of a president, what is it that we should be expecting from a president? And so we'll start kind of with you guys. Let's keep it like 30 seconds to a minute to just kind of get an overall feeling from each of you guys of what you think a president is. We're going to start with you, Bone. Let us have it. Big Bone, good to have you.
Hey, man. Good to see y'all, man. So, man, this is a great subject. So to keep it real quick, like as a lot of things we talk about, it's more than one answer. And what I mean by that is, so depending on which club and which chapter you're talking about, you might be talking about everything far to the right, far to the left. Basically, the idea of any chapter president is to be not just the face of that club, but it's also legitimately to be the leader. You know, some guys will tell you, oh, well, the president is just the guy that do what the body says. But in real life, it's a lot more than that. And so as far as whether he's a Hitler or a saint or somewhere in the middle, it varies. It varies. And those are the things most importantly, those are the things that need to be digested a little bit, which that president is and what's best for that particular club or chapter. It varies. There's a lot of stuff there. So I said a whole lot of stuff to say absolutely nothing. How about that?
Appreciate you there, Bone. Dirty, give us an example. And you happen to be a president, so I'd love to get your 2 cents.
Well, I mean, the president should never be a dictator, especially in a motorcycle club. I mean, I'm only speaking from, my area or my particular part of the MC lifestyle, but president should never be a dictator. He should be someone who leads by talking to everybody in the club and making sure that they're on board with whatever he's trying to do, because if you're trying to push the whole goddamn club in one direction, they don't want to go, you're not going to win that battle. So you almost got to be somewhat of a salesman of your own ideas. But as far as like duties of the president, he nobody tells him what to do, but everything falls on his head. Whenever there's a major problem, especially outside of the MC with, like, say, another MC or whatever, it's all going to fall right on the president's lap, and he's going to be ultimately the one that has to deal with it. So yeah, I'll leave it at that, just so I don't ramble on.
Wow, tell us what you think,
buddy. I mean, they all kind of said.
You got a T-shirt on for us today?
You can't read it. It's about smoky and green and all this stuff. You can't really read too much.
Yeah.
Keep it green. Keep it green. Well, I mean, the president ultimately is the CEO of the company, basically, right? They're the face of the company, like Big Bone said. They have to have the right amount of people around them to help delegate things to, and not be, like they said, a dictator. He can't try to do everything himself. And that's basically in the nutshell. There's some guys that try to take the whole control of the whole chapter and put people in positions and officer positions that are just going to be yes men to him. And that's not the case. Can I get close?
Appreciate that. All right, Park, give us yours. Park, you're president too. Tell us how things done up there.
He is the president.
No, for me, how you said, I surround myself with a good board. I'm not a dictator. I'm a politician, basically, within my club. You try to get people to buy into your ideas, and how you get them to buy into your ideas is being a good leader. You can't ask a dude to sweep the floor if he ain't never seen you do it. And I don't ask anybody to do nothing that I haven't done. But the main thing is that sometimes you got to put your foot down, because, how do you say it? Your man will follow you how you lead. If you know bullshit, there'll be no bullshit. You'll have one and do, but that's the mentality that the guys will pick up. And my mentality is like, let's do good for our community. We bros, let's ride these bikes. And when something come up, don't get it twisted, because we'll take care of that too. And when people see you practice what you preach, it makes it easier to lead. You know what I mean? Because everybody in my club, I used to think that I would want them to prepare to be me when I'm done. But I want them to have fun, but yet still they still see me move and know I'm not out getting drunk. I'm making good policy. I'm following the bylaws. And I got people. I'm not the end all be all. The vote is the end all be all for us. Only time I put my foot down is when it's something that there should be no vote about. We just got to get down like this. And that's how I see it.
Appreciate that. Tank, give us your perspective. Can't hear you. We can't hear you.
How about I unmute my mic? There we go. Yeah. my president's the best president ever. Just to let you know, he's fantastic. Is he still there?
I agree.
That's not what you texted me. Man.
Yeah, right. I mean, a good president is a leader. He's not a boss. There's a big difference between the two. If you're attempting to lead, no one's following, man, then you're just out for a walk. So if you're not a good leader, and like Pac just said, if you're not leading by example and showing the other guys that there's nothing that's beneath you, the other part is that you've got to put good people around you, because a bad president can become a cancer into the organization. And if they're a bad president's going to put people that are less than him around them. He's never going to put anybody who's better than him around him, because he doesn't want that person to rise above him. So, that takes a little bit of, you have to be humble too. And, you have to be a leader.
Outstanding. And we're going to come to you, Mayhem. Give us your 2 cents.
I'm just going to put like another layer on top of what everyone said, because I think everyone kind of focused on like a good president and kind of like how they direct and manage their club, but also kind of based on some recent experiences and stuff, it also brought to light that not only does the president have to kind of like manage that, not take it over, but take everyone's into account and consideration, and just sort of manage the different positions and the members. But they also have to take from above your national levels of like rules and bylaws and things, and make sure that when if it's a new president starting a chapter or a president taking over, that they continue to maintain that chapter within that framework that's been pre-designed for them.
All right, appreciate you, D-Lo.
Probably helps if I turn my mic back on, right? Actually, Tank hit it right on the head for me. Is you got to be a leader, and like Pac said, lead by example as well. But being a leader sometimes, you got to try to be fair, I would think, but at the end of the day, you're still the leader. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I can't really speak on duties and stuff like that. I was never a president, so I don't have a lot to add to that subject, but I can say like what I would expect from my president. But we can get into that a little later.
I appreciate you. Okay, Shaggy, Uncle Shaggy, welcome back, man.
Yes, sir. I'm glad to be back and for a little bit anyhow. And this is one of my favorites. As we talked earlier, BD, you and I have spent hours and hours and hours on end discussing this topic. However, so there are several things that a very effective leader should have. As a former Navy instructor, I spent many, many years teaching leadership courses to future warriors that take their guys into battle. And I spent many, many years under the wing of some very great people in this lifestyle in my former club and in my current club. One thing I'll make clear is I've never been an officer or a president at that in my current club because, I'm 2.5 years into this. So I don't want to be an officer, but I do have a lot of these skills. I was a president for a long time in my former OMC I was in. And what I will tell you is a president, one, needs to be elected by his body. That means there's a sign of respect from his brothers around the table. Two, in order to be an effective president, you need to have the voice of your chapter. You need to know what they're thinking, how they act, which means you need to spend a lot of personal time with them to get to know your brothers intimately. Thirdly, you need to be able to speak on their behalf because you've done 1 and 2, right? You've been elected, you spend time with them. There's going to be times where you're put in situations where you got to make quick, snap decisions. The other thing, too, is if you're a guy that has to have that position, you're the wrong individual. The most effective leader is the guy that doesn't want anything to do with it, but the body realizes that he is the man that's going to lead them and keep their best interests in mind. And the final thing, and there's so much more that goes with this, I only got 30 seconds. The final thing is you are no longer an individual in that chapter. You are now the president. You are no longer a brother. You are now the president. Everything lands at your feet. I mean, bitches, complains, pissing, moaning, whining, crying, the whole 9 yards. You don't get that brother-on-brother conversation. We'll tell stories about that later. But you are the embodiment of that chapter. When you go to national, you speak for that chapter. When you go to your regions, you speak for that chapter. There are times where you have to speak for that chapter when dealing with things outside of your chapter. You need to be somebody that when you make a rush decision, your brothers look at you and go, man, I support you 100%. And they back you no matter what because they know it's on point.
All right. So now that we know some things about what people should expect from a president, let's just get into it. So my president fined me and threw me out of the club. He's judge, jury, and executioner.
Wrong.
Let's hear. Come on, y'all. Just go ahead and speak out as you feel like it. Bone, I see you shaking your head. Let me get you in here.
Okay. So let me qualify. I'll share my resume a little bit. While I'm not currently a president, I have been in my old club. I was a local president or chapter president, state president. I've been a VP in my existing club, and as y'all know, the chairman for the COC, which is basically the president of the COC. And one thing that's very consistent is there are issues with whomever. There's some bro that ain't right. It's never, in my opinion, it's never the president's job to say, "Hey, give me those rags and let me give you the boot and show you the door and all of this kind of stuff." That's not what a president's job is. Now, if a president identifies an issue or concern or something, so if that individual in that president's opinion should be gone from the chapter or from the club or however, that's still by default, that's a decision that has to be made by the chapter, unless of course there's some sort of egregious offense that there's no conversation necessary. But overwhelmingly, the chapter is going to make that decision, or the club is going to make that decision, whether the president likes it or not. Because the president, now again, there are like Pac said, there's those times where, hey, you just got to make an executive decision and say, hey, this is what it is, and that's the burden of, heavy is the head that wears the crown. So sometimes you have to make a decision that's very unpopular, or even in some cases that might be, the bylaws might be called into question as to whether or not that president could do that or not. But at the end of the day, the best interest of the chapter is the chapter in the club is what's most important. So to answer the question, by and large, a chapter president is not like, no, you got to get out of here, I'm kicking you out. That's just not the way it goes. We've had conversations before about somebody being out bad or kicked out, or even as it comes to suspensions and that. These are things that the chapter needs to discuss, because again, unless it's a Hitler kind of dictatorship, that's a different thing. And I'm not suggesting that there aren't chapter presidents who run their chapters like it's a dictatorship. But even when that happens, remember, everybody in that chapter where that guy's a Hitler, and they co-signed on it. They're for one reason or another, they're letting them do it.
So even not even
something else
so not,
to add to that. I was going to say something else to add to what he's saying is, in a traditional motorcycle club, 1% or lower, the traditional part is the Democratic part of it. The president doesn't have a vote. He don't vote to change policy. He might bring up something to move an idea forward, but he's got the power to pull your patch and put you in a suspended until you come before the chapter. But typically he's the guy that's supposed to be meetings. He's supposed to be the guy that's kind of playing referee on what's going on around the table. It's the chapter's decision whether or not that cat shit gets pulled. Now, I've heard of 1% clubs out there that they say who their bosses are going to be. Their bosses have the all-seeing, all-knowing powers of doing what they want to do, and their club's business, and that's what their club does. That's fine. But in the democratic societies I've been around, every time I was a boss and a president, and there is a difference between the boss and the president, and that later they go kind of hand in hand. It's an earned thing, but the president does not have the power to do anything in a meeting setting on pulling somebody. That's a voted on thing. That's a democratic
chapter votes on it, and then sergeant at arms enforces it.
That's absolutely right. President has to remember his place, and the sergeant at arms should put him in his place if he's stepping out of it and he's becoming tyrannical and pulling people's shit without following the protocols and the bylaws.
Yeah.
The hands are bound to the bylaws, and he can't break those.
Well, presidents break those bylaws all the time, and so if you're a president and you assigned your own sergeant at arms, now
it's not appropriate. It happens though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right. So we're going to come back to something at the end, which I want you guys to keep in mind is what can you do about it. But let's go to the next thing. So the president has the bank accounts in his name and is handling the club money. Pac? Uh-oh. Park is on mute. Hold on. Park
Hold
is
on.
now on mute. Go ahead.
Hey, I want to jump in and say what Saggy said. It was really funny. The most frustrating shit to me is I can't vote. We have meetings. I can tell them how I feel. I can tell them what I think, but I can't vote. So only time I can vote is to break a tie, right? But my job is to be a politician, and I talk to them and say, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm thinking that. And if they swing my way, they swing my way. If not, they figure it out later. As far as the money, we got a treasurer, we got a VP, and we got myself. All of us is on the bank account. No one person has control because we have treasury report and everybody knows where the money is being gone. I mean, if I tried to pull that, it wouldn't be good for me. That would be some dictator shit. But we try to make it here where everybody knows what's going on because everybody has a stake in what we do, whether we raise money, what we spend money on. Because if we spend money, then we're gonna have to do more fundraising. So everybody has a stake in it. And if I had a dude tell me, I won't say no names, but he was another chapter try to get access to our account. I was like, no, it don't work like that. I'm not giving you access. And that's when I knew it was going to be a problem because I have to stand up for my dudes. But if it's one dude that is in charge of the money, it's always going to be an issue. You got to have checks and balances. Like they said in the military, trust but verify, right? That's what all my guys in the military, they tell me trust but verify. So I don't put myself in that situation because everybody needs to know what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, I was just going to say like I said, it's a business in a way that it's the bank account's an LLC, right? Set up an LLC, you have members on it. When we had ours, we had 4 people listed as members. So then there's other eyes on the account, like secretary, VP, the P, and we actually had the SA at the time too. So it's not just one person. I mean, like you said, that's just leading to big issue if you're leading to one person.
Yeah, it's the same with Llama too. I mean, we got the individual officers.
President.
I was gonna say we got the individual officers, that have the account, stuff like that, and it's all transparent. Like at we go to church, it's on there. We all know what's going on, where the funds are, where we need to, put more funds into that type of thing. So, and I think Shaggy really.
First of all, the president should never touch the money. The president never have his hand in the money ever. That's conflict of interest. He can't control that. Here's the thing: a good president is going to trust his elected brothers in the positions they're elected in. The oversight comes from the vice president, but the president's job ain't to play with. His job is to lead the chapter. When you're setting stuff, the president's name is on the whole of the charter. He's in charge of the whole charter. You're going to use your vice president and your treasurer to work together on those things for your two-man integrity type thing. The president needs to have it clear of that. Okay. Yeah. There are a lot of risks that brothers who elected as president and serve their clubs as presidents that they take just being the president. You throw money in the mix, and man, you got a powder keg ready to blow. So when we're talking about the money, it's a traditional thing that I've talked to clubs about across this country for years and years and years because I'm always wanting to learn the best way to lead. I mean, you can never learn enough. And every president that I've ever talked to has said, I don't touch the money, don't want nothing to do with it, don't have my hands in it, don't have my name on none of it. My job is to lead the chapter.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Okay. My president is drunk and riding his motorcycle all the time, high as a kite, and poorly behaves in public.
Hey, if he like that, somebody need to check.
That's when your sergeant at arms gets involved.
His SA need to check his ass off rip. You know what I mean? I've been to 2 places in my life, and 3 places in my life where I even had a drink. The Goon Squash in Minneapolis, when I went down to Macon, Georgia, to be with Black Sabbath, and that's it. And then I was in Florida with Bone, and we was drinking in the garage. That's it. And I was off duty then. But when we in a function, I expect somebody to check me because I promise you, if you see somebody that got a P on their jacket and on their vest and they drink it and they ha 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 ha, man, somebody need to check them. The SA need to get on him because you know
Yep.
what? It's like I'm a representative of everybody, and if I'm out that way, somebody gonna think we about the bullshit and try to get at me or get at the club, and then you got a whole nother issue. I wish
Yep.
I kept the president, and if I was around a 1%er, because most of the 1%ers I'm around, they know me, I know them. I would pull somebody to the side and say, "Hey, get your man, because he making y'all look bad." You know what I mean? And that's with
Right.
all due respect and being humble, because how could I say that me and you got a relationship as friends, brothers, even though we're not in a different club, we in a different club, that I don't pull you to the side and say, holler at your mans, because you know what I mean, somebody should check you. And I think that people can't be scared to do that, because when you wear that P, it means something. It mean a lot. And if you getting drunk and your essay don't check you, he the wrong essay. If your VP don't check
Yep.
you, he the wrong VP. You know what I
Look,
mean?
look, Doc. This goes back to what I think it was you or Shaggy brought up a little while ago in regard to, if your president has built his cabinet around, hey, everybody's my homeboy, and they can't communicate with him properly, and they can't check him if he needs to be checked, or you can't just be transparent about whatever, you got the wrong folks. I know a lot of chapter presidents I've seen in over the past 25 or so years. Their number two was not necessarily their best buddy. They didn't agree about everything. I've seen that many a times. And believe it or not, a lot of times when we weren't necessarily, like when the number two wasn't in agreement with number one, or the number three wasn't really all tight with them and everything like that, it actually creates more of an opportunity for everybody to do their job. And the thing is, if you in that environment, if everybody, if the in particular the cabinet, if every cabinet looks at whatever their position is, like, I'm going to do my job regardless of my association with this bro right here, and that one brought me into the club, and that one right there, I used to talk to his daughter, or whatever kind of foolishness it is going on. All of that stuff, especially on the diamond side, all of that stuff gets trumped by your duty to your club. And that's, it's just like in the Marine Corps. The thing that I loved about the Marine Corps is that you had a great amount of confidence that the man to your left was going to do his thing, the man to your right would do his thing. So individually, we had to that everybody approached it that way. So when you mix, personal feelings and all like that, that's where things get a little messy. But yeah, so yeah, you see, if your number one is faded, somebody needs to talk to him. And if that becomes a habit, then that needs to be addressed too. There's steps for that.
I'll tell
But you know
you,
what, Dragon?
the cabinet I had, my vice president and I did not get along. He was my yin to my yang. My secretary got along with him well, man. He did his job well. My treasurer and I, and the vice president, was on top of that money, and the books were always open for anybody to see it at any time. And we got audited nationally every year. And my sergeant at arms and I were probably the two closest out of my entire cabinet, because we had to be. The president deals with the administrative things, and think of it this way: like you talk about the Marine Corps, I was a CB. We talk the same jargon and lingo because we go through a lot of the training. So your president's admin, where your sergeant at arms is organizational, and he's doing the missions. When a fight breaks out, if your president's the first out there stopping muddle, well, you need to start checking your brothers. Get your sergeant at arms out there.
So, Dirty.
I'll tell you this real quick. I'll tell you this, BD. I still say this all the time. In fact, I said it to one of y'all just recently. If I'm the smartest guy in the room,
I think they lost the sound, guys. I don't know.
Oh,
Everybody's
okay.
saying the audio.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
comment section, no one can hear anything.
BD, can you
They
hear
got
me?
it back down. They got it back down.
Okay.
Check mic 1 2 1 2 check.
They got
I
it
can
back.
hear you.
My
Yeah,
checker.
There you go. Echo 39er how copy over. Echo 39er how
They're
copy.
good now. They're good now.
All right.
This
Now,
is a test of the one MC. All test set.
all right. So what I was saying is just this: is that a thing that I often say because I really believe in it. Man, if I'm the smartest guy in the room, you know, and this equates to being in a presidential seat. But if the president is the smartest guy in the room, man, he's got to find a different room to get in because you're not going to learn anything if you're the smartest guy in the room, or if you think you're the smartest guy in the room. Because if you're not learning, you're growing. I don't care whether you're the local president, the 99 president, or the national president, or the president of the doggone universe. You still need to be learning stuff every day. This is your craft. This is your craft, and if you're dedicated to it, you always want to do the best job that you can for your organization, and that just happens through having a thirst for knowledge and then practical application of that knowledge that you get. And I know again, me and Shaggy speak the same language about that stuff, but it applies to everybody. And it really doesn't matter if you're a president or not. If whatever your position is, or it doesn't matter whether you're a member, a soldier, a friggin' treasurer, or whatever. If you take it serious that I'm going to do the best thing that I can do about this, whatever it is that they got me doing, do the best at that. And if everybody, including the president, take that same attitude, man, that makes for a wonderful chapter. And God willing, it makes for a wonderful nation.
Dirty, I'm going to ask you this. So you got a president who decides to change the bylaws because something that has happened that is going to affect him. So he's going to change the bylaws so that it no longer affects him or somebody that he cares about.
Well, as far as like changing bylaws, that's always a club decision. That's something that's always got to be voted on, at least from my experience. Like when I took over, we had to tweak some bylaws and change some stuff around just because we're a relatively young club and it was just kind of messy and a lot of guys wanted to kind of look at certain things again. And I mean, I can make recommendations, but like it's been said, presidents don't get a vote. You know, I can make all the recommendations in the world, but at the end of the day, I can't make the final decision. If a president's trying to tweak the bylaws to serve him, you got yourself a dictator on your hands. And hopefully the chapter or club or whatever is smart enough to realize it and not let them go about doing it. I mean, I would assume that every club has a contingency plan to get rid of a president if he's going too far. You know what I mean? I would assume that there's always some sort of thing where they could do some sort of mutiny by a vote or whatever. You know, I know we got that in this club. If I fuck up too much, they can come for my head. But, yep. So, I mean,
Head on spikes.
vote of no confidence, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's just how it is. I mean, if you got a president that's trying to fucking change the bylaws to suit him, that's a bad fucking president.
You know what? The crazy thing is, Dragon, is that I like it. I love it when my SA argue with me. I love it when my VP don't agree with me. Because if they don't agree with me, then we can find common ground, right? But I wish I would say, let's change the bylaws. I got my SA will be all on me, and he love me. You know what I'm saying? He would come and like, let's get down because you doing some underhanded shit. And I think that speaks on my level of the guys that I got surrounding me because nobody just says yes. They argue. They argue so bad. Example, I told these dudes one thing. This is what it is. We need to do this. They argued 6 months now ago that it wasn't right. It wasn't right. I threw my hands up. I said, you know what? Y'all looking at this like we just ride bike. We are businessmen. So if we don't start thinking like businessmen, we gonna lose money. 6 months later, everything I said came to pass. They changed the boat, and you know what I did? I just sit there and I sip my tea because time can show people when you're right. And I didn't have to call no special vote. I didn't have to get mad. I just was like, all right, y'all don't believe me? Watch what's gonna happen. 6 months later, it's $10 to get in, and everybody's like, man, we should have did these years ago. And I just sit there and I made me some tea and I just threw my pinky up like this and watched them.
So, Danny, I see you. Danny, I see you shaking your head.
Hey, but see, Shaggy, you're right. You're
Shaggy. Hey, Shaggy. I think your audio is not working. You got to stop a second. I don't think your audio is working, Shaggy.
It was working. I heard him.
No, we can hear, but no one's hearing him.
Like right before you cut him off, there was a dick in the vice, and he was cranking it down
Hey,
and smiling.
but can I clarify one thing? Can y'all hear me? Let me clarify this. I don't know how everybody else is set up, right? We're set up as a nonprofit with the United States, right? I'm a motorcycle president. I'm a businessman when it comes to the fact that our mission and our goal is to do good for our community. If we riding bikes, getting drunk, and just don't got a plan, we can't raise money. We can't be a business. At the end of the year, we have to report what we made. So I'm not going to limit myself to say I'm just a motorcycle president. I'm a brother. I'm a businessman. I'm the dude to sit back and try to help come up with a plan and get my bros to buy in. My VP, the smartest dude in the room. He's the dude that's on the news. He's the dude to get the awards. And I just sit back, and it's funny to me because they be thinking this pretty motherfucker come up with everything. But it takes all 18 of us. It takes 18 of us to figure it out. You know what I mean?
I'm positive they're not thinking this pretty mofo.
I promise you they are. My VP is like Denzel Washington around here. You know what I mean? And he's the one that's kissing the baby. He's the one that's on the news. And me, I'm in the back just clapping my hands, applauding because they didn't think a motorcycle club could do what we have done in this town. So when you think about it, I'm not an LLC. We're a nonprofit, but the money got to come from somewhere. So I'm not going to keep my focus just on small. I'm trying to think biggie. That's what we say. Stop thinking small and thinking biggie, because we could ride bike till we blue in the face and say we here for the community. And if we don't got 50 cents to put together, we can't affect change. So we are all business on
here. Hey, BD, I'm going to be taking off right now, but I just want to say, backing off just really quick. Some people say, not a business, all this stuff. At the end of the day, they do run it like a business. That's why we have Robert's Rule of Order in regards of there's certain things that they do follow to keep some order. Doesn't mean that you are an LLC or anything at all, but the president should be leading by example to a point. There's a difference between bookkeeping and checks and balances, and people have to. I can get a whole conversation with that. So that's something people have to look at. But at the end of the day, everybody knows what the job should be, and there's always going to be people that are going to be bending the rules to do what is better for them and not the club itself. And remember, most of us got in when we were like, I'm not involved anymore, but when we did, it was something bigger than just us. And if someone's just thinking about themselves, and then that's a whole different ballgame. But I got to get going to the neutral zone. I just want to thank everybody on the board. Awesome listening to everybody all the time. Much love. Peace.
Carlos, take care.
See you in a few.
So, Danny, I've been trying to get to you for 6 minutes. Holy moly. You were shaking your head no. So I was trying to get to you because I wanted to get that.
You know what? Honestly, it's so long ago, and I've been interrupted already. I don't even remember what it was about.
Poor Danny.
Just fucking saying.
One thing I gotta say though is that I feel that all these scenarios and questions that have come up, I think like Shaggy just spit out like one word that sort of like encompasses and sort of like gives an answer to everything as far as the president position and what it should be doing, and that's democracy. Like, he put that out there, and it's true. And the funny thing is, I came across this charter and bylaws from the 1600s of this. I forgot what the ship's captain's name was, but it was this pirate ship, the captain, the crew, and you would be amazed at how accurately those bylaws from that time, like back when people lost like fucking hands and got hooks and lost their leg and got a wooden pogo stick for a foot, how accurately their bylaws and their understanding of democracy, when it didn't even exist in the world yet, how they ran their business, how accurately that reflects the bylaws and the beliefs in motorcycle culture. And I think that it comes down to that. When we look to our leaders, our officers and positions, we're looking at a democracy that they're representing their people. They're representing the club, and that it's never supposed to come across as like any kind of like dictatorship or one individual has an all-encompassing power to make decisions for everybody.
Right on.
Outstanding. So, okay, Bone, you saying something?
I was just going to say, as he was saying that, I was thinking about the COC. So last year, or was it before the presidential election, for several months leading up to that, we did a thing whereas we made contact with all these. You heard me talk about it before. We contacted or was contacted by a lot of different local politicians, some running for state offices, congressmen, senators, incumbents, and all this. And what we decided to do was to hear from everybody and make decisions on. We made an endorsement of everybody. I mean, every office from the president down to the damn local dog catcher, and it was all based on what politician was going to serve in the best interest of the COC as far as who we made. As who we endorsed. The thing that's important about this circumstance, what I'm talking about, is the COC is made up of a lot of different folks. We got guys that are just a little bit to the right of Hitler and a little bit left, as far left as you can get, and everybody in between. And in the rest of the country, we saw politics and political opinions tearing the country apart. In the COC, now we sat down like grown-ass men and made decisions based on what was in the best interest of the COC. And there were a lot of different issues that we talked about, primarily things that benefit, things that are important to motorcyclists and motorcycle clubs specifically. And then we delve into some other things like the Second Amendment and healthcare and all this other stuff, just like everybody else. But what we were able to do was come up with, and I'm talking the endorsements were, some were Democrats, some were Republicans, some were independents, even though the makeup of the COC is kind of all over the place, more right than anything else. But hey, it was based on what was in the benefit of our COC. And that's kind of what needs to happen within chapters, in the sense that everybody's got to kind of get over themselves and make it. And this goes back to the president. Decisions have to be made for what's in the best interest of that chapter. So if you're the president and the chapter voted a way that you don't necessarily agree with, and you do everything that you can do to pilot that ship, and they still come up with something different, guess what? When you're sitting down with the folks outside of your chapter or national or whoever it is, you represent the interests and the opinions of your chapter. So that's part of that being a president thing, that and then that's why transparency is also very important, to make sure that president is doing exactly what's in the best interest of that chapter, whatever decisions they made.
Right on.
One thing I'd like to add, I've heard it multiple times tonight that your president isn't your brother. And I don't know, man, I kind of feel differently about that. Your president is your brother, but he is your president. You know what I'm saying? Most of the time, your president was your brother before he became president. You know what I'm saying? So I just felt like I needed to say that, because I've heard that a couple times, and I'm like, maybe I'm missing something, or you know what I'm saying? But I mean,
So Danny,
at the time when I was in the club, my president was my brother. I mean, yeah, he was my Prez, and I protected him and everything. But first and foremost, he was still my brother. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Hey,
So
let me throw it.
to
I'm gonna
clarify
say this real
that,
fast, and I'm gonna say this real fast, and then shut the hell up. But so D'Lo, spot on, absolutely correct.
Definitely.
The thing I wanted to point out, even though I mentioned before about people being buddies and all like that, the truth of the matter is that you're right. Your president was your brother before. In most cases, he was your president.
Right.
He was your doggone brother before. He still should be your brother, even though he's in that seat. But the thing that a
Right.
lot of people miss is this: while we're talking about the chapter makes these decisions and all this kind of stuff, but it is the doggone president who guides that ship. And every individual brother in that chapter has got to have respect for that seat. You have to respect the
Right.
president's seat and his position. So, because sometimes the president does have the ability to make a decision that's an executive, we call it an executive decision. He says
Right.
that's what it is. If he says, hey, we're getting ready to roll, guess what? You're getting ready to roll.
And you're right. Like I totally get that. Like sometimes it's hard to take your brother as a stern person to tell you what to do. You know, just like in business, you know, when you got a business partner, you know, it's hard to decipher, you know, who's being real and who's not. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I get that. Sometimes it's hard to take a shot from your brother versus your president. You know,
That happens in
so
real life though all the time. You know.
no doubt,
well,
no
so what I
doubt.
want you to understand
Yeah.
about that, Danny, is when I said that, and this personally happened to me as the president. So I always believed I was a brother first, and I was the president second because that's the title I earned when I patched out as brother,
Right,
and through time, and I built that rapport with these guys. Well, I always thought that until that one time you get fucked over. And how that usually happens is a brother will go to you and say, hey, boss, I need to have a conversation with you. I need a brother on brother. I need to get your brother on brother opinion. And you're like, right
right,
on, man. And if you're in that mentality, I'm a brother. So we brothers are going to sit and talk. So you sit and talk. Well, you may not necessarily agree on the conversation, but the outcome is, hey, brother, I respect your opinion. You expect my opinion, yada, 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 back and forth, right? Well,
right.
you sit down for the fucking meeting, and this same brother who wants to have this brother conversation with you, his first words out of his mouth is, well, the president said, and the president said this, and the
No
president
shit.
said that, and all the brothers are like, boss, did you say that shit? I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. They don't want to hear that you had a brother on brother conversation. And I'll tell you what, I almost lost my patch because of it. It was
Yeah,
that
I can
bad.
understand that.
And so
I can definitely
I had to
understand
learn
that.
a valuable lesson. And some other presidents and other chapters, and my former national president said, look, man, heavy is the head that wears the crown. You're not going to be everybody's buddy, and they're going to try to fuck you every which way from sideways because you're the guy that when the chapter does, they say, hey, chapter, good job, did good. When the chapter kind of foobars a little bit, they're like, okay, guys, kind of settle down. But when the chapter fucks up, everything falls on your shoulders
Right.
as the president.
So,
I get that point of view too. You know, I
yeah.
understand that.
So I
let's,
think the presidents have to get a little bit of compassion and understanding. The thing that they used to say to me all
Yeah.
the time was the good as a president. I'm talking the good stuff that you do is never recognized or remembered. The bad shit that you do, they never forget. Right, and
Fuck
that's
no.
the curse of being a president. It's the
That
president's
goes
curse.
without saying with everything in life.
Exactly.
so let's
Yeah, but in a
take this
motorcycle
to
club,
a
we're
second
brutal.
half.
Hey, hey,
Let's take
can I just?
yeah.
I'm sorry, Dragon. My bad. Go ahead.
No, what were you saying? Can you just what?
Oh, I just wanted to throw a couple little points out just from my personal level because I got to get going to the other show too, guys. Like I said, I can't speak a lot on how to be a president, the duties and all that because I never experienced that. But what I have experienced is what I'm about to talk about is as a president of your club, one of the things I expect as a member is for you to have my freaking back as a brother. You know what I'm saying? And if you're a president and you don't have your members back, no matter what it is, hands down, I don't care what it is. If you don't have your members back, you're really not a president anymore. You know what I'm
Don't belong
saying?
in that seat.
You know, and I've experienced that personally, where you know you got a president involved, and something happens or whatever, and he's telling you something that everybody else is telling you to do, but he's telling you not to, or vice versa. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're gonna be a president, always have your members' backs, man. You know what I'm saying? If it's some bullshit you're not really trying to co-sign on, then maybe pull him aside real quick and give your personal opinion. But you know, always have your members' back. That's the main thing, and that's really what I just wanted to say real quick before I bounce up out of here, y'all.
Absolutely,
All
great
right.
point.
All right, man. Appreciate you, Danny. All right, let's
For
move to
sure.
the second part of this. And as we move kind of towards bringing this to an end. So, all of these things I brought up are things I've heard before, I've seen before. I've had people complain about it hundreds of times. Presidents being drunk, presidents eliminating the vote. We're not going to vote now. We're going to hold the vote for another year. Presidents trying to be president for life. Presidents taking money. Presidents disrespecting members, talking to members like they're crazy. Um, you know what happens to when a president talks to you like you're not a man? What happens to you if a president just feels like he can do anything he wants? So the question becomes, what can be done about it? What can be done to stop an errant president, especially when that president has the backing of the people that are supposed to be shutting him down, such as the sergeant at arms. The sergeant at arms is the president's boy.
Hey, I'm out, guys. I'm just gonna let y'all know I'm gonna break out. I just want to say much love and respect to y'all. Great show, guys.
Take care, Danny.
Peace.
Buddy.
Thanks a lot, man.
So actually, I'd like
So,
to tackle that one because it happened to me.
hold on. Let me finish it. Let me finish. And I think we had Park's hand up first, so we'll run with Park first. At that point, what can be done? So we'll take this around the round table and see what we're gonna do. So Park, you had your hand up first. Go ahead.
Yeah, I say whoop his ass. That's my bro. Whoop his motherfucking ass. And if the SA, which is my bro, want to defend some bullshit, we'll whoop his ass too. Point blank. Period. It's like you got brothers, you got family, you all don't agree. You all got that uncle that want to come and push you in the head and play these games. But as soon as you grab his finger and tell him you ain't gonna do that to me, he's back up. It's like any one of my bros, any one of them, you got to talk to people how you want them to talk to you, right? And if you get mad or upset, you're not above saying, I apologize for that. I was in the moment. But if I was getting out of line, I promise you, it'll be 3 or 4 dudes knocking at my door saying, come outside, we got to talk to you. You know what I mean? And that is because I empower them to do that. I'm not above the law. I'm not even the law. I'm just sitting right here to keep the ship going where it's supposed to do. The best thing about any job when you're in charge of men is that you don't bend, you don't break, you flow. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to make an executive decision because right is right and wrong is wrong. But other than that, you let the bylaws, and the gentlemen that you have around you to be your cabinet, you make them work the system, and you just sit back and just steer the ship. But if a president is getting out of line, if I'm getting out of line, I would demand they come 20 and 10 me, because that's the only way that everybody gonna see nobody is above it. And people gonna say, well, violence don't fix everything. Man, you smack a motherfucker that say you my bro upside the head and say you better get right. We finna call a vote on your ass. I promise you things gonna change. And maybe I'm wrong for thugging it out, but that's my mentality.
Yes, you are wrong for thugging it out. However, I understand.
Thank you, Dragon. Thank you.
You know, me and you have our talks.
We do.
So since we got the thug perspective, I will admit to some things here that's going to really blow people's minds. I was all of those things in that title: a tyrant, a king, a dictator, and at times not a brother, and eventually became a boss. Which at that point I had earned all the respect. I was in a situation where I had all brand new members, and I was the only senior guy there. I just started a chapter. And these guys are just, prospecting and then patching, and they're still learning. And it was one of those things where they were, and brothers hate to hear this, especially new brothers, they didn't have really the capacity to know what was best for the club yet, because they were still learning their time and processes in the club to where they fit in. They were still learning the bylaws, they're learning this and that. And it come to a point where I had grown the chapter big enough where the chapter turned around one day at the table and said, "All right, dickhead, enough's enough. We're fixing to beat the brakes off of you." And of course, that's when there's stories of the old Shaggy showing up to meetings with a proverbial axe handle, as it were. And that's when I realized that my chapter wasn't going to take my shit no more. So I had to grow up as a leader, listen to more of my elders to taught me, all them skills that I had from being in the military, learning leadership. And now there's a difference between leadership in the military and leading a motorcycle club, big time. See, in the military, you tell somebody to do something, they better fucking do it. In the motorcycle club, you got to convince your brothers that it's what's best for the club, and you've got to get their trust to where you say, "Hey, bro, take care of that." And it's not one of those things where it looks like you got to beg them or, plead with them. They know, hey, man, the boss is asking me to do something, so I do it. It was a big relief when the chapter finally turned to me and said, "Hey, man, we're tired of this dictator shit. We're ready to be let out of the nest. Let us be a part of the chapter." And, I couldn't have praised them brothers more. We had a great fucking chapter for the time it lasted. And, things were great. And I was the boss for a long time, and I tried so hard to get rid of it. I had to quit the club to get out of it. Now, that's a joke, but, is what it is.
So what can we do to stop it, Dirty? I mean, we can't whoop the ass too.
Well, hey, yeah, I mean, I suppose you could try to beat somebody up. I mean, but it shouldn't even get to that far. You know what I mean? If you're at the point where you're looking to whoop somebody's fucking ass, then chances are you probably should have stopped it a long fucking time ago. And as far as hearing other guys, say, well, if he's getting out of control or he's doing this or he's doing that. Well, first of all, you also got to look at who's saying that person's getting out of control. I've seen disgruntled members that they were the only ones that thought that they should be at the helm, or they would do it better, or they would be whatever. So I mean, you kind of got to take everything with a grain of salt. But yeah, at the same time, if you're looking to beat somebody's ass, you probably should have solved that problem a long time ago before it ever came to it. And that's up to each individual club to figure out how they do that.
Tank,
I got it.
I mean, any good club, any good organization for that matter, should have oversight. And so you do have, you've got your president, you've got the officers in place for the club, but there should be some sort of an oversight committee in place. As part of Richard Robert's Rules of Parliament procedure. So, I mean, there's always should be an instance where they can bring it and refer back to the bylaws and then go to a board, an oversight committee, to say, hey, and bring that person's questions into order. Now, here's the conflict is that usually that oversight committee, the president's on that too. And so it can get a little dicey in that respect. Shaggy said it best when, it's indicative to the leader to look at themselves and to do some growing up as a leader. There's a lot more to it than what we're just glancing over in this whole subject, because there's so many different situations and things that are involved. I mean, there's so much. There's too many nuances to it.
Man, Tank, I was gonna, to piggyback on what Tank said. I'm gonna say this stuff real quick. I even wrote it down because I'm chomping at the bit over here. So, yeah, there's a lot of different nuances. There's a couple of different ideologies that are clashing against each other on this particular subject. First thing being what Pac said. I'm going to co-sign what Pac said to a degree. And what I mean by that is this. So in the Marine Corps, we had a thing called Potter's Field, or a place called Potter's Field. Potter's Field is an imaginary location, whereas it can be behind the chow hall. It could be on the doggone parade deck. It's wherever the hell it is. And what Potter's Field was for, if let's say I'm a staff sergeant and I got an issue with a first lieutenant and we just can't figure it out. And what's going to happen is, or what can happen, and this is in the Marine Corps, you had the opportunity to say, well, sir, I respectfully, Staff Sergeant so-and-so, I respectfully request your attendance to meet me in Potter's Field so we can discuss this situation further. That's a real polite way of saying, I want to beat your ass. First, let's go over there. And what you do is, it's an actual procedure for it. What you do is you take off anything that has rank insignia on it, whether it's your cover or your lapel, whatever. Take off anything that has a rank insignia on it. So I'm just a Marine, he's just a Marine. And we're getting ready to go settle this because we can't talk about it no more. So we're going to go beat the hell out of each other. And the way it worked is, if I beat his ass, then whatever I was saying, I was right. If he beat my ass, whatever he was saying was right. And once it was done, we're going to shake hands, go have a beer. We ain't going to talk about it no more. But whoever won that fight, that was the end of it. Now, when you apply that same ideology to the MC, sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. Sometimes there's bylaws that say you can't do that. And sometimes bylaws say, well, you can only do that under a certain circumstance. Sometimes it's, you can do it, but you can only do it for 3 minutes, and after three, or whatever it is. There's a lot of variables as to how that's addressed. So in regard to what Pac said, that's not completely off the table. That's not like he's the first guy in the MC history to ever come up with, hey, you know what, beat his ass. That's part of MC history. That's MC 101, to be quite honest with you. The next thing is this. If you guys ever seen a brother who on day one, like when he was a probate or prospect, whatever, man, he was gung-ho. He got his patch. He had patchitis for a minute or two. But then at some point between then and now, he became what we like to call a half-ass bro or a half-ass brother. Like, he don't want to show up for nothing. He don't want to ride his motorcycle. He's not at the clubhouse for open house. He's hardly ever doing anything. And they say, man, what's the matter with that guy? He don't do nothing. He's a half-ass bro. Well, sometimes a half-ass bro is because he's just a half-ass individual. I censored myself. A half-ass individual. Other times you can turn a guy into being a half-ass individual or half-ass bro because of the fact that a chapter president or whomever speaks to that man like he's not a man and he doesn't have recourse. So he's like, hey, you know what? If y'all don't know how to talk to me, or you don't know how to talk to me, or you're disrespecting me, then you know what? It's easier just not to be there. It's easier just not to be there because you ain't going to talk to me any kind of way. Because check it out. MC, what's MC stand for? We can all say it together. You know the answer.
Motorcycle Club.
Man's Club. Well, yeah, it's Motorcycle Club, but the whole adage is MC, MC means man's club. So if you're not a man, then you can talk to a punk any kind of way you want, but you ain't gonna talk to a grown man any kind of way and it just be all right. That's how half-ass bros get created. I had a president one time speak to a group of folks, and he was on some opinions that everybody else didn't agree with. And he said, and he was all kinds of wrong related to the bylaws and everything else. And this president said at the end of his rant, he said, I have spoken and it shall be done. Like he was Pharaoh. No kidding. I have spoken and it shall be done. And
slams his staff in the ground.
Like,
before he got his ass beat, how big of a roar of laughter happened?
I was like, wait a minute, was that Charlton Heston in the Moses movie right then? But I say all that to say this is that, yeah, in real life, that shit don't fly, man. That shit don't fly.
Let me
talk to a man like he's a man.
Bone, listen, and I hate to admit this, I used to before I got tightened up. Before I got tightened, shit. Before I got tightened up by one of my sergeants at arms, I used to sign my decrees with by my hand. Oh. And so,
he went into the MWR room for fucking submarine counseling.
Oh my goodness! So we've all been taken down a peg or two. I used to, when I would sign stuff for, right after I became national president or whatever, I would, sign my stuff all out, and I would finish my signature with by my hand.
So shall be done. Dirty made a good point though. Like, if I'm like pointing out something that's wrong with my president, and I'm like, this is just going south, this is going sideways, it's wrong. This shouldn't be happening. And I'm the only one that's saying it. Then it's probably a problem with me, not a problem with my president. Like there's different perspectives, right, that come into it. And, I think that we have to, take those things into consideration as well. So when you talk about like what can be done, if the president is, doing his thing and he's kind of going sideways with it and he's got the support of the sergeant at arms or whatever, if the club as a total, as a whole, is against that direction, they still have the power. It's still like a democracy situation where the members themselves can make sure that it gets righted, even if a couple officers or or whatever on the same page, but that page is completely separate from the book that the rest of the members are in.
Well, one thing you got to understand is, one, we're human beings, and our passion for the club sometimes can get in the way of decision making. We're not always going to agree. Reason for having to sit around the table, and the president's job is to make sure that discussion's being had in a manner that's well put together. You're not having, my favorite thing to shut down at a meeting is, one brother, he gives us good point of why he wants this change or that change, or this law added or this one taken away, and then you got three brothers behind him like, hey man, I agree with everything that brother said. And then he goes on to say everything that brother just got done saying. About a quarter of the way through, I was like, shut the fuck up. We already know what's going to be said. If you agree and you're going to say the same thing, show your agreement by saying you agree and by your vote. We don't need to keep, because that just drags the meetings out. And so, some people say that's the wrong thing to do. But eventually, brothers come out that, hey, man, if I agree, I'll just make sure my vote should. The other thing too is the president is the glue that keeps the chapter together. If he is an effective leader, if he's got the voice of his chapter, I mean, those brothers will follow him into the depths of hell and walk out with Satan's fucking skull, drinking out of it, having a great fucking time doing it. They will make a clubhouse a phenomenal place, or they can destroy it. Towards the end of my time in my former club as the president, it all fell apart. It was really crazy, and it would happen so suddenly, man. It was one of the most devastating things I'd ever seen, because I worked hard for that, right? And as a president, that is the one thing that I was taught is, once you lose the voice of your chapter, once you lose that trust your chapter has in you, you've lost your entire founding as the president. And there's times where it's so bad, the brotherhood just don't even want you in the club anymore, because it could get that bad, because they entrusted in you their lives, their livelihood, your wisdom, leaders, your teachings. And when you lose that, I mean, it's a devastating thing.
So as we wrap this up, I'm not sure if we've really covered, or if you guys, do you think we have? How do you get rid of this? How do you stop this person from running amok? How do you bring a president back into compliance? How do you gently nudge him? How do you force him? How do you do an intervention? What is it that gets a president back in order, or even maybe even the whole upper staff? Now, Pac said a little bit earlier, but
Dragon.
Well,
yes,
Black Dragon, you haven't talked all night. Black Dragon,
go
you're
ahead.
a former national president. How do you get your presidents that are dictators and out of line,
right,
back in line?
Well,
that is,
down,
you haven't said a word all night. Let us hear what you got.
The national president.
Come on, boss.
Okay. Pac, were you you're not leaving, are you? Did you? Can't hear you, Pac. Okay, you got to get. All right.
I got to get out of here.
Take
They
care,
calling
Pac.
me for work. I got to get ready to do something. But before I go, don't take my hands-on approach as to not to thinking that we don't have rules in place. And I'll say this before I go. The bylaws are put in place and that any man can be brought up on charges. Any person from the president down to a member can be brought up on charges. And every person in any clubs should feel they have that capacity to bring those charges against the top to the bottom. That's say foremost. My enthusiasm is for, I mean, we got a different culture. Everybody has a different culture, but sometimes, like you say, Bone, Potter's Field is the best choice. With all due respect, let me holler at you, because everybody can be touched, but you have to talk to everybody like they're men, because they are men. I don't want no flunkies around me. I don't want nobody that I can just and they're gonna do what you want. You have to be respectful. So this is one of the hardest jobs, right? Besides the essay, they got to follow me around all night. But if you refer to your bylaws and you got people that are in your cabinet and you allow people to come into your club that have their own opinion and their own mind that all want the greater good for your club, you won't even have this problem. And if you do have it, you have those rules and regulations right there to fix it. On that note, Dragon, thank you for having me. All you guys, man, it was great to be here, but I got to go do some work. They blowing up my phone right now. Thank you very much.
Take up there.
Right,
take care, bro.
Have a good one, bro.
Pac,
And
take
don't
care.
think that we're gonna let you take that back, bro. I still that's the best one of the night still. You don't get to walk that back. Knock him out.
I'm just saying.
Knock him out. Talk
Hey,
shit.
more than one way to skin a cat, right?
Hey,
Amen.
stay dangerous, Pac. Stay dangerous, baby.
That's right.
Love you, Pac.
That's right.
Love you.
Love the hands-on approach.
Okay, so
Yeah.
from a national president perspective, you know, there's a couple ways that I would handle it. Handle things like this. One is if I'm trying to do some training, if I'm trying to teach some lessons, I let that chapter sit in it until they find a way out or choke. Because you're grown men, everything is on you in terms of you do the elections. Nobody can be over you that you don't let be over you. And if you're gonna let some moron come in and finesse you and con man you and strong arm you, then you're not as strong as a chapter, and I want you to suffer until you figure it out. If I'm pissed off or this person has truly egreged our bylaws or just really pissed me the hell off, then I fire their ass. And it happens, pretty much like that. I wrote 122,000 words about how I feel on this subject. Most of this book was written from the, you might find this interesting, Bone, from the Marine Corps manuals of leadership. The JJ did tie buckle, if you remember that.
Good old field manuals.
The 14 principles of military leadership.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
That's what this book is written on, those 14 principles. And I believe in those 14 principles: judgment, justice, bearing, initiative, oh my goodness, integrity. These are the things that I believe a president should lead by. And so if one of my presidents is not leading by that, it just really depends on whether I'm trying to teach a lesson or I'm upset with somebody and it's time for them to go. I always had a difficult time firing people. It's just something I hated to do. So when you got me to that point, then your ass was gone. The problem, though, is it's easy for me. I got to a point where I was at the top, and it's easy for me to push down and make things happen from my point. But from the perspective of so many guys I've heard from in the club have actually been bamboozled, hoodwinked. There are guys, especially I got a lot of 99 percenters. And after we did the movie Biker Boys on the black set, the biker population exploded. The club population exploded. And so many people put together clubs. And you saw the most interesting things, like guys would they would put the clubs in their names, they'd trademark the clubs or whatever the case may be. And you got these people that are in this club and there are no bylaws. Can you believe that? There's clubs riding around with no bylaws. Bone knows what I'm talking about. There's clubs that are riding around with you got a sergeant in arms enforcing bylaws, and he doesn't even own a set of bylaws. And the thing is, people are going by what they hear and what they think, and there's presidents that won't let people see the bylaws and all this kind of stuff. This is stuff I've seen with my own two eyes, and I've always been like, how does that small man who your first time in the club, you don't even know what the hell bylaws are if nobody's trained you, if nobody's taught you, if they're not held at the highest esteem. And you come into these clubs and you don't have any idea, and you got all these people telling you all this stuff, and you're invested. You're invested in your time, you're invested in your money, you're invested in your, somebody said vested and invested. Vested because you've become a vested patch member, and you vested, and you're invested because you got your money in there, and then someone's telling you, well, if you don't like it, you can go. Well, no, mother effer, I can do something else. Like Pac said, I can whoop you. But there's other things that can be done. Like, for instance, these guys that are founders, and the club gets so big, and then blah, 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 and then all of a sudden here comes the founder, and you can't do this, and you can't do that, and you can't do the other. These are things that people don't know a whole lot about. They ask me about all the time. So I just thought it would be interesting to hear you guys point. The reason Black Dragon didn't speak tonight is because I've spoken 122,235 words of what I think a president should be doing. What a president, get the book. What a president should be doing. How a president should be acting. And I just wanted to hear, because Black Dragon talks all the time. I wanted to hear what you guys had to say, and a lot of what you guys had to say, Tank, Dirty, a lot of guys, what you had to say, Mayhem, Shaggy, Bone. It let me believe. It made me feel good because I'm not crazy. And these people.
No, in fact, you're not crazy. And what's funny is the membership tries to make us that are in leadership look like we're the fucking crazy ones.
Yeah. Right. But I'm not crazy. And to hear what you guys are saying, these people that are asking these questions, I want you guys out there to hear too that you're not crazy either. So,
hey, Dragon,
to do this
I think if I was to put this in a nutshell in regard to the last question, like how do you fix it? And the whole president running amok, to just kind of put it in that part in a nutshell, sort of works like this. The work has a lot more to do with the individual members and yourself than it does actually a lot of times to do with the president. So let's say you identify these problems, issues, or concerns with the president. First thing, and Shaggy brought this up a little earlier, but the first thing you got to do is you have to love your club more than you're angry with or disappointed by your president. You got to love your club more. That's the first thing. The second thing is, and this sounds like a contradiction, but it's not. You got to love your club, but you have to support your president. You support your president like he's your brother, because he is. He is. And what do you do with your brother? You help him. You work with him. You talk to him. You get frustrated. Sometimes, yeah, you want to knock him out sometimes, but guess what you do? It's your brother, so you work with him. And the other thing, you got to remember, well, it helps to remember that in most cases, when you're talking about a president position, I don't care whether he's been doing it for 5 minutes or 50 years, a lot of, especially in today's time, it's OJT, on the job training. So
absolutely.
You know what I mean?
We didn't have the book.
Yeah, you're constantly learning. Yeah, BD, you should have wrote that book about 60 years ago.
You took too long to come out with it.
And but the thing is, it's OJT, man. So sometimes a president has to be taught things. Now, where it gets tricky is when, again, like I said earlier, if that president, he's the smartest guy in the room and you can't tell him nothing, that's a problem. And even then, you got to work with him, because guess what? Somebody voted him into that chair. So you've got to figure out a way to share your vision, or to teach him, because sometimes you have a president who's a young guy on the set, or maybe he's been there for a minute, and that sometimes can be the worst. He's been there for a minute and he thinks he knows everything.
Complacent.
So, and you got to work with him. You got to love your club and your brother just as much. You know, you got to love your club more than you're hating on him. You know, so
Right.
So
that's
how I put it in a nutshell would go off of what he said, which is coming from being a leader, I now know a lot more than what I knew back then. Like I said, we didn't have a book, but I was taught from the 14 traits. I was taught from the military. And then I had a 20-year gap between me and the next oldest guy. So I had all these older guys putting their wings over me and teaching me. And I didn't become a president until after I'd been in the club for 9, 10 years, something like that. These young guys just think they want to run in there and be the president because, oh, I could do it better. Well, guess what? You can't do a damn thing better because you're held by the bylaws. But how I would put this in a nutshell is being that leader, I love my brothers unconditionally. You know, they're going to fuck up. They're going to make mistakes. They're humans. And knowing what that job entails, I am sure if that brother is acting a fool, that's because he's so overwhelmed because he wanted to be in that position. He politicked to be in that position. Well, now he's in that position and it's kicking his ass. So if I'm the one sitting there going, dude, what the fuck? And all the rest of the chapter is like, hey, well, there's anything wrong. Pull them off to the side and be like, look, man, do you see the mistakes you're making? Do you see the road you're going down? Now, if you're the only one that has a problem with him and he's not understanding what you're saying because he thinks you're just being, overzealous or you're trying to push your weight because of your experiences and you're trying to make it your way and he's trying to do it his way. Sometimes you might have to have those, as we called in the Navy, the Connex box counseling, not the yard, but you close the patch room door and you say and do what needs to be done. You go to the bar and you discuss it some more, but you're not really going to teach him nothing. You're just going to piss him off more, and now he's going to poke at you more. You need to respect that brother for the position he has, and if you're a former leader, you need to understand what he's going through, and respect the fact that he's still learning himself, especially if he's a new guy. And the last thing I'd like to say is for these clubs that are listening, for these guys that are new in the club scene that want to be presidents, man, enjoy your time as just a regular member. Go out there, fly your colors, ride your motorcycles, because when you take on the burden of responsibility and the burden of leadership, if you're not ready for it, it will take everything out of you. Your fun, your love of the club, the love of your brothers, the love of everything. You'll make home life miserable. There's a lot of things at being a leader that some of us were pretty successful at getting around because of our past training and stuff. But if you're a new guy and don't have any of that, man, it's going to affect more than just, hey, I could do it better, because you're going to lose your passion for the club. You're going to eventually quit. You're going to, people are going to be pissed at you and things are going to be said like, well, this guy said he could do it better and he fucking quit. It happens more often than what you think. Get that knowledge from them old guys. Get them knowledge from them presidents. Learn not to be those things that are in the title tonight, the tyranny, the dictator. Be a brother first. Learn as much as you can. Get some time under your belt. Take all the time you can. The club's not going away, okay? The elders are, but you got to learn to get that training from them so that you can replace them. Become a leader before you step in a leadership role.
Tank, what are your final thoughts, sir?
Final thoughts. So you touched on it right there at the end. You talked about the founders. And, founders, just like Shaggy was saying with the elders, the founders eventually go away. You can't make new founders. And so by allowing them to have their influence, and for that to be like the driving factor as to how your club is shaped, I think is not necessarily the path, because, when that club was founded, that club was that club at that point in time, but it's a moving target. It's a living entity, and it changes and it evolves with the members themselves. And, as you get the younger guys in, they've got a different vision, and eventually there won't be founders around to be able to put down what they had said, in the beginning and what they were founded on, and the club is going to have to find their way to find their new ground together. And that involves everybody being a brother and everybody knowing enough when they have strong leadership in place to back them. But everybody's got to be a brother first.
Appreciate you, Tank. Dirty, your last words?
Well, I think
Not your last words, but
my last words for tonight. No,
yeah.
unless you know something I don't. But the number one thing a president needs to know or has to do is put the club before himself. The club as a whole is more important than anything, and the bylaws have the final say. If you go by your bylaws, then you should be fine, because they're ultimately the bad guy. They're ultimately the savior, and the club as a whole has to be thought of over one individual president, sergeant at arms, probate. Doesn't fucking matter. The club overall is always number one.
Okay, Mayhem, man. I appreciate having you on, man, tonight. Thank you for being our special guest. Hopefully, we can get you back here. You represented the Latin American Motorcycle Association. Outstanding. We're glad to have you. What are your final thoughts tonight, sir?
Thank you, man. A lot of people on the board made a lot of great points tonight, talking about various things from their perspectives and experience. Shaggy hit on a couple things that struck me when he talked about, democracy. And then when we were having that discussion about whether a president is a brother or not, and D'Lo mentioned he's my brother, but then Shaggy talked about his experience, and it just kind of made me think about that old saying that power corrupts, and it doesn't always have to, but it does, at times. And so I think anyone who takes on that position is opening themselves to that kind of potential thing. And it's up to the individual, it's up to their supporting cast, their officers, it's up to the members of that club to make sure that everything stays in line and that everyone's represented the way they should be by their leadership. So I do think a president certainly can be a brother, but at the same time I can see where that can go sideways if it's not checked.
Certainly appreciate it. I think we've gotten everybody's final words. Have we? Anybody left? We got everybody. Did we get you, Bone? Okay, great.
Yeah, I wouldn't shut up. I wouldn't shut up for some reason. I don't know what the hell.
Not like we've ever done this before.
Listen, guys, I just want to thank you all and tell you I think we had a great show tonight. Hopefully people learned from this. Thank you, Dirty and Tank and Big Bone and Mayhem and Uncle Shaggy. Make sure to catch Uncle Shaggy's show. We got the Biker Lifestyle Podcast with Tank and Dirty. And Mayhem, you got a show?
No, I don't have a show yet. I literally just started a YouTube channel like 2 days ago.
But we do know where to go if we want to get some good guitars.
There you go.
Or an old ass typewriter.
That's right. And I'm gonna be. I signed up for a grand tour of Texas, so I'm gonna be going around and hitting a lot of premier spots and like tourist destinations and like little known areas within Texas, going on rides to those types of things. So I'll be posting a lot of those adventures.
Well, thanks a lot, man. Have a great night. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you. Thank you, Dirty. Love you. Appreciate you. Thank you, Bone. Love you. Appreciate you. Thank you, Tank. Love you. Appreciate you. Have a great next week. And thank you, Uncle Shaggy. Love you. Appreciate you. Congratulations on your 6,000 6,000 followers.
I think we're almost close to 6,500 now. I mean, the way it's growing, and I just started a new Shaggy's Corner MC Life Facebook thing, to where I could type little stories and stuff in there, little anecdotes, and kind of keep my brain moving. Man, it's cool to be back on stuff like this, and I'm going to be back, sporadically on and on, trying to get back into it. Believe it or not, 30 days of not doing videos, man, the rust builds fast on that. It's not like going 30 days without building an engine, that's for sure. The torques and all that shit, you just go in and do it, but getting in here and talking again, it got to get back in the groove again.
Appreciate you, man. Have a great night.
Take care, bud.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So you get to hear from a bunch of folks on what it's like to be a president, and what a president should be doing. Listen, I think what you should take away from this, anyone still watching, because it's been a good hour and 30 minutes. I think what you should take away from this is that, dirty rats and roaches and bad kinds of people, they exist well in the shadows. As soon as you expose the light of day on them, they're not so strong anymore. That's why rapists try to rape in the dark or try to sneak up on you, or con men try to whisper to you. You got some garbage going on in your club that ain't right. Bring it to the light, bro. Don't be afraid of it. You got somebody doing something is wrong to you. Doesn't matter what he wears or how powerful he may seem. I mean, you saw the great, powerful Governor Cuomo just get brought to his knees almost by a lady making an accusation. It turned into several ladies making an accusation. Like when the house of cards starts to fall, it just tumbles on down. And we've seen this with all kinds of powerful people. Motorcycle club presidents can get power because they have people like us that worship and adore them, and sometimes it goes to their head. So there are things that you can do to protect the motorcycle club and yourself and your image and what you believe is right. You get vested and invested, and you don't have to walk away. You can clear things up and clean them up too. So that's why I wrote this book. Took me many years to write it, and I wrote this book because I thought that it might help folks out there to become a president, to learn how to be a president, and also for folks that have presidents to learn who and what those presidents should be and how to support them and make them better. These are important things for people that love this lifestyle. Somebody said the Cuomo confession got him too. Yeah, you didn't get to see if you guys want to see something crazy, they just put those confessions on YouTube, and it's crazy. But anyway, somebody said, no wonder you write books. You're eloquent. Thank you, Angry Boomer. Appreciate that. All right, so that's my 2 cents. We should probably. I'm tired. I don't know if I'll be on in the morning with news or not. I'm gonna try though. So we'll be on tomorrow and in the week. I'm Black Dragon. Make sure to catch us on the Dragon's Lair Motorcycle Chaos. That's our podcast that this was broadcast simulcast on. Also, we have it's called bikerliberty.com. That's my online news magazine, bikerliberty.com. You can get our gear and my books at blackdragonsgear.com, where you can get the autographed copy, or you can get them on Kindle or Amazon. And soon to be, within the next month or so, you'll be able to get my books on audio. So I definitely appreciate everything you guys have done. Facebook, we're on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Check it out. My TikToks are cool. I think they're like 15 seconds long, and they illustrate motorcycle club principles in 15-second increments. So please check those out. So that's my 2 cents. I'm Black Dragon. Love to hear your 2 cents in the comment section below. Thanks for tuning in from wherever it is in the world you are. Thank you, everyone, for my beautiful donations tonight. Thank you, C. Ruger, for your donation. And so many people gave me donations tonight. I just want to say thank you to you all for those wonderful donations to help us keep going. Charles Taylor, appreciate you. C. Ruger, appreciate you. Just scrolling up and looking at my donations that came in tonight. Forever Vigilant, appreciate you. Thank you so much for all of you folks. I'm Black Dragon. Thanks for tuning in. And get skinny and get the book.
Prepare yourself to take the helm as president of your mighty motorcycle club by delving into the pages of Black Dragon's newest book, The President's Bible, Chronicle 1, Principles of Motorcycle Club Leadership. There you will learn to advance your skills in applying the 14 scientific principles of leadership similar to those taught to officers in the United States Naval Service. Available in hardcover, paperback, and ebook. Get yours today on Amazon, Kindle, or order it at your local bookstore. Order your autographed copy from blackdragonsgear.com. Be the best motorcycle club president you can be.
Get the book!
Get the book.
Get the book! That's how we know.